Hey everyone, here is the video on weight cycling that I promised to post by Sunday. It's actually going to talk about a weight normative approach versus a weight inclusive approach, and I will get more into what those things mean. Also, I am on vacation right now, so I'm waiting for this thunderstorm to pass so I can go to the water park if it does pass. Also, I'm here with some family, so if you hear some talking or people coming in and out of the room here, that's what's going on. But so ultimately, I'm going to be reading from some notes as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about weight cycling and what that is. Probably many of you have heard of the term yo-yo dieting, and that's essentially what weight cycling is. It's this constant up and down of weight management in terms of that. And I'm sure at this point, probably everybody has heard a statement or a phrase that says that dieting doesn't work, and that's true. The reason dieting doesn't work is because it involves weight cycling, and also, a lot of this has to do with genetics. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the genetics of weight and weight loss or weight maintenance or whatever. So ultimately, weight management, which is weight loss and weight cycling, that's a central component and has been for a very long time of healthcare regimens in the United States. And as I just said, that doesn't work. So a weight normative approach emphasizes the pursuit of weight loss despite extensive evidence that weight loss is not sustainable long term for most people. And what that means is that most people have this window of a healthy weight, and it may or may not have anything to do with BMI, body mass index, but generally speaking, people have this range of weight that is a range from about 10 to 20 pounds where they function the best within that range. And so people who attempt to go below their lowest point on that range oftentimes don't do very well, and people who are well above that range or even slightly above that range also don't do that well. And so what that means is if you are a person who is constantly dieting and trying to lose weight that is below what your set point minimum is, you're going to be engaged in this up and down constant weight cycling period, because genetically speaking, we have our weight is basically predetermined, and of course there are exceptions to that. We do have some control over our weight in some senses, but a lot of the times it really is genetic. There's no real way to tell what your set point is necessarily, except for when you're eating well, you're exercising regularly, staying active, things of that nature. Whatever weight you are generally at when you're doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing to maintain your health is generally what your set point range is. So weight cycling, yo-yo dieting, is linked to adverse health. I think we know that. And basically our current approach is that well-being is only possible at a specific weight, and that's pretty prevalent belief in the United States, but that's just not true. You can be healthy at any size because of that whole set point range theory thing. Focusing on weight loss rather than health carries the risk of adverse outcomes for people who do it, and it lacks evidence for sustainability over time, which is something that I've said twice now already. So in reality, we have very little choice over what we weigh, genetically speaking. So basically what we're talking about here is when we focus public health on obesity-related efforts, these are harmful because they have been based on limited or poor quality evidence. There's also a focus on preventing one extreme outcome at the expense of another extreme outcome. So our current approach is you're either morbidly obese or you're super, super thin, right? And so we oftentimes have people who are overweight or obese who are being told you need to lose weight, and oftentimes they're not given much guidance or coaching on how to do that. And so we'll end up at the other extreme, and may even develop some eating disorder behaviors in the process, which is not good. There's also a focus on preventing, I just said that. So that's the boomerang effect when you're going from being overweight to underweight, overweight to underweight. When we focus on this obesity-related public health effort, we're ignoring the root causes of the obesity problem. And that'll be a whole other video that I put together. So essentially, the weight normative approach rests on the assumption that weight and disease are related in a linear fashion, with disease and weight increasing in tandem. And what we know now is that is also not true, and it also focuses on weight management and weight loss to prevent and treat a myriad of health problems. And the evidence does not support that this approach actually works to improve health or prevent obesity. So there's also no evidence to support that a higher BMI causes poor health. There's no evidence to support that. In fact, when we're looking at BMI only, the risk of death is highest for those people who are underweight and obese 2. There's 2 categories of obese. There's obese 1 and obese 2, depending on your BMI. So risk of death is highest for people who are underweight and obese, morbidly obese. The risk of death is actually lowest for those who are overweight, which is probably surprising to many of you. And then the risk of normal weight and obese 1 is comparable and falls between the other 2 groups. So the risk of death is lowest for people who are overweight when using the BMI scale, which is, I find, completely interesting and fascinating. The weight normative approach also bestows negative judgments onto higher weight individuals by promoting the view that higher weight individuals are unhealthy and are thus a burden on society. And it also bestows judgment on the belief that weight can be controlled by willpower. And thus, if a person is fat or overweight or obese, then it is due to poor lifestyle habits. And that's not necessarily the case or always the choice. We also don't even take into consideration genetic and involuntary environmental contributions to body weight. Those 2 things, genetics and involuntary environmental contributions to body weight, outweigh voluntary lifestyle choices when we're talking about weight. And the promotion of healthy weight as the key to health and well-being may actually instill a sense of learned helplessness in the majority of people who will become unable to attain these weight-based goals. And what that means is that if we, as a society, have this idea, it's thundering, of what a healthy weight is and what that means, and usually we consider that to be like thin, and that's just not necessarily true. You can actually be very unhealthy and also thin. But ultimately, people, when they are caught up in this idea that they can control their weight, when most of the time they can't, as long as they're within that set point range, they're going to learn helplessness. Like, why bother? Why try to keep myself healthy, fit, in shape? It's not working. So the practice of healthy behaviors may actually be seen as futile, because if weight loss is the goal and genetics and involuntary environmental factors contribute more than voluntary factors, you might just develop a sense of helplessness in the face of that. So rising weight trends in Western societies have created an intense focus on weight loss initiatives, but none of them have actually generated long-term results for the majority of people. That's a pretty big deal. And often diet failure is accompanied by weight cycling or yo-yo dieting, which I talked about at the beginning of this video. So weight cycling directly compromises health and is linked to higher risk of death, higher risk of osteoporotic bone fractures, gallstone attacks, loss of muscle tissue, high blood pressure, chronic inflammation, and some forms of cancer, which to me sounds all negative. Weight cycling also has been shown to be connected to compromised physical health and psychological well-being. So for people who are yo-yo dieting or weight cycling, your physical health is compromised, as is your mental health, which to those of you who have done that or who have engaged in weight cycling or yo-yo dieting probably don't find surprising at all. And people with a history of weight cycling lose more lean muscle mass, but not more body fat, and they lag behind in positive changes to body composition and cholesterol. And greater emotional distress is associated and connected to weight cycling, especially those who expected to have more personal and social success with weight loss. I think in this society, and I'm talking about the general United States culture at large, there's this idea that people who are thin and fit this ideal body size shape that is actually mostly not, attainable for many of us, most of us, I would say, that you're going to be happier and more successful and have more friends and your life is going to go more smoothly if only and when you hit that weight, and that it's just not true. And so when that happens, when you find that your life is actually not better once you've reached that goal, you're going to create more emotional distress for yourself. And then women with a weight cycling history gained more weight over time and engaged in less physical activity and more binge eating. And that's a setup for eating disorder behavior, certainly. So women with a weight cycling history actually gain more weight over time and engage in less physical activity and more binge eating. And evidence indicates that people who try to achieve and maintain a weight suppressed state, so that means you're attempting to stay below your minimum set point. So people who try and maintain that are actually at a risk for binge eating disorder and bulimia. And if you are interested in more information about those two disorders, just let me know. You can email me or comment on Be Well with Amy Michelle, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions about that. So the emphasis on achieving a healthy weight implies that there is a healthy or normal weight that each of us should be striving for and should maintain. And that goes right along with all of those other, unreachable American ideals. So weight stigma refers to negative weight-related attitudes and beliefs that manifest as stereotypes, rejection, prejudice, and discrimination toward people of higher weights. This should come as no surprise. There was just that, Playboy model who engaged in fat shaming in the gym locker room. So teasing, bullying, harassment, violence, hostility, ostracism, pressures to lose weight and be thin, negative appearance commentary, and weight-related microaggressions are very prevalent in our society and are totally damaging to people. And internalized weight stigma, meaning that somebody who has internalized all of those messages that we receive from our culture at large, that refers to the degree to which a person personally adopts negative weight-based societal stereotypes and then judge themselves and others based on those stereotypes. So self-judgment may foster body blame and body shame within an individual. And then weight stigma, the whole thing is actually associated with increased caloric consumption, meaning that people who buy into this idea that, there's shame in being, a weight that is larger than whatever the ideal is of the day, they actually end up increasing more calories. And I tend to think that has to do with, a lot of times we eat emotionally and because we're distressed and stressed out. So that was just a little bit about weight cycling, although I didn't talk a lot about what actually weight cycling entails. But it is this yo-yo dieting, which, it's being on a diet, off a diet, or dieting at all. Dieting does not work. The research shows that. And yet all around in our culture we see take this diet, do this diet. And so that's one of the reasons why I utilize the Beachbody stuff. When I started the program, I used the little containers to help me figure out what nutrients to eat every day, because I wasn't eating what I should have been eating to help my body function at its best. And also just portion size. I mean, how many times do you go to a restaurant and you get a plate and it's packed? Those are 10 times the portion sizes that we should be eating for our health, not necessarily our weight, but for our health. So dieting doesn't work, and I wasn't taught how to eat well, how to eat appropriately, what nutrients to put in my body. So I had to go out and learn that stuff on my own. And I learned that stuff by using the Beachbody nutrition plan, specifically through the 21-day fix with the cups, and they were super, super helpful for me. And now I don't need to use those anymore because I have a pretty good diet and I follow it, and I learned through using that method. So, and now it's just a part of my lifestyle. I eat well every day, and I'm getting the things that I need to make my body function appropriately. So again, if you have any questions or want to know more about the weight normative approach, which we want to stay away from because it doesn't work and it's unhealthy, please let me know. My next video will probably be on the weight inclusive approach, which is a healthier alternative to the weight normative approach. So I thank you for watching, and again, please, if you have any questions either about the weight cycling, yo-yo dieting, or the Beachbody program, specifically the nutrition stuff, let me know. Thanks for watching.